Good afternoon. This is Robert Ricks with the National Weather Service Office in Slidell, Louisiana, once again, with another weekly weather briefing. And with some unfortunate news that we report that it looks like this weekend, once again, is going to look similar, strikingly similar to Easter Sunday, where we had severe weather across the area. And unfortunately, we had a couple of fatalities up in Walthall County. Our sincere condolences to the folks in Walthall County for that unfortunate occurrence. And we're going to hope that this weekend doesn't evolve into the same thing, but we'll discuss it further. And we'll also review a little bit about what happened this past weekend. So in situation overview, we are looking at mild conditions to remain in place for tonight and tomorrow, and looking at drought conditions to worsen in the short term, because we've been dry for about a month or so now, month or 2 months across much of the area, rainfall deficits. So we are looking at getting some rain chances in here Sunday and again on Wednesday with a couple of systems coming through. The rain does start returning to the area Saturday, late Saturday, as the cold front settles into the area, but it then stalls. And then that's going to be, as it moves back northward as a warm front, is when the activity starts up once again with a severe weather potential evolving for Sunday. This is a similar scenario that played out last weekend. Back to quiet weather on Monday and Tuesday with some cooler, drier air back in place. Well, at least for the morning lows, looks like highs still managed to get into the 80s, even despite the cooler air. And then another storm system rolls in on Wednesday. So looking at a little bit of a review from this past Easter Sunday, this is the National Storm Prediction Center map that shows the storm tracks and most of the reports that came in. Over 945 wind damage reports with the little blue dots that you see there. Speckling of some green dots, which is the hail reports, about 43 of those. One which was rather large hail up on the Red River of Texas. And then the red dots in particular, as you see these lines are broken up semi-linear lines that you see across the map there, those are these long track tornadoes that did occur. We had three particular ones in Mississippi, in the southern part of Mississippi. One that was unfortunately the Walthall County one, but we also had two very long, impressive tracks that went across the the Highway 49 corridor in south central Mississippi. One of them was about 68 miles long. The other one was about 87 miles long. So these are very long tracks by any standard. Two of them did manage to rate an EF4, which is in excess of 160 miles an hour intensity. One of them is still undergoing some further scrutiny as far as getting a maximum wind on it. The one in Walthall County we did rate as 170 miles an hour max winds on that one. And that was a little shorter track, about just under 7 miles long. So you can see the behavior of how the weather unfolded this past Easter Sunday, quite violent. What we have here is a little treat. We've been delving more and more, our agency has, into this very high resolution satellite imagery that comes in. If you get the benefit of having some clear skies after an event happens, you get to see these really nice, outstanding scars that show up on the surface of the planet, and this is the case here. So the little haziness that you see from southwest to northeast, just north of Salem, Mississippi. This is in Walthall County. You can just see this haziness in there. That's actually the scarring of the soil and the debris scatter and everything along a tornado track. And this is quite impressive, actually, to say the least. If you were to look and scan further and pan over further east of here, you could actually see the two parallel tracks that went through Sartonville and Soso and those places, Collinsville and those areas upstream. Those are quite impressive because they're parallel each other. It almost looks like railroad tracks. They're running right side by side each other, separated by several miles, and they're 2 miles wide in some places along that track. So quite an impressive event. To put it in historical perspective, this is the first time in the New Orleans service area, which does include part of Mississippi, that we had an EF4 tornado strength storm since December 5th of 1983. So it's been quite some time, over 30 years or so, since we've had one of this magnitude in our area. And then I circled the oval area that you see highlighted there is where that scar area is showing up just north of Salem. So moving on, looking at our current situation, the only thing in play right now is several river flood warnings that we do have in effect. Of course, the main stem of the Mississippi River has been under the typical spring thaw type flood that's been going on and typically goes on in the late winter, early springtime. And so that's what we're seeing there. The Bonnet Spillway was partially open the past few days, and now they've started even closing some gates. So it's in the process of diminishing down, winding down with that operation. And as a result, we are looking at the river steadily falling as we get later into the month, and even falling below flood stage in most of these locations by the end of the month. So that's great news as far as the Mississippi River is concerned. Also, we have a flood warning going on at the Pearl River in Bogalusa. This is a rather minor event and short-lived, and we should expect this river to fall below flood stage in the next couple of days. And then along the Chaffalaya River, that's some water being diverted through the old river structure from the Mississippi River that's got that kind of on a high flow side, and there's minor flooding occurring on the Chaffalaya River as well. So here we're looking into the future now. We're going to skip tonight and Friday because basically it's still quiet weather. Just some clouds will start rolling in later tonight, and fairly cloudy day tomorrow, but warm, and the humidity will still definitely will feel the difference as it starts getting more humid. Looking into Sunday, however, this graphic I went back and looked at and compared to last Thursday's briefing, and this looks strikingly similar. They do have a 30% risk area, which typically translates to an enhanced risk across the northern half of our forecast area. And essentially, it runs from Baton Rouge to Hammond to about Picayune area, Mississippi, northward. So that's a big chunk of southern Mississippi, and it goes into what we call the Florida parishes of southeast Louisiana, the upper North Shore parishes of Louisiana. And further south, the threat is somewhat diminished, a little bit less. You got some marine influences that kind of tamp down the threat a little bit, and most of the dynamics is going to be passing well north as well. So that's kind of working against the South Shore. But nonetheless, there is a marginal to slight risk for even severe storms in the southern part of the area. So we'll keep an eye on things. Right now, it looks like the primary timing is going to be in the afternoon, early evening hours, let's say between 2 and 9 p.m. on Sunday. And once again, all modes of severe as possible. The long track tornadoes threat may not be quite as high as it was last Sunday, but not to say that there can't be some decent sized tornadoes that develop out of this nonetheless. So looking at our threat outlook day to day, you can see most of the area is grayed out, except we do focus on Sunday. Right now, damaging winds are a threat. The afternoon and early evening hours on Sunday. Hail threat, probably not the most favorable condition of all three, but there is some risk for some hail. Tornadoes, once again, mainly the daytime heating. Let's call that, say, mid to late afternoon, possibly as once the sun goes down, the threat does start diminishing. And then heavy rain threat could be anytime throughout the day, but the amounts we're looking at are not terribly great. In fact, it's actually beneficial if we get anything whatsoever, because it will help ease the drought situation that we're currently in. Now, right now, we're not indicating anything for Wednesday just yet, but I wouldn't be surprised if in the ensuing forecast days ahead, leading up to next Wednesday, that might start showing some indications of some severe threat as well. We'll see how that evolves. We got a little time on that. So looking at the storm total rainfall forecast across the area, you can see there is a large area of higher rain expected near the I-20 corridor, say from Monroe over to Jackson, across Vicksburg and this Jackson, Mississippi area. That's where the bulk of the heaviest rain is likely to occur with this next event on Sunday. But as you get further into southwest Mississippi, you're looking at amounts that's about in the 1 to 1.5 inch range on an average, aerial average. And then some pockets of maybe 2 inches are possible in that area. As you get closer to the coast, that's where the rain's needed the most, folks. And unfortunately, it looks like it's going to be light amounts once again. But we'll take whatever we can get. It looks like it's probably going to be a half an inch or less as you get closer to the coast. So looking at our drought situation, this is the national picture. It just came out today. It comes out every Thursday morning. And you can see a large chunk of the deep south is in some sort of a drought scenario right now. Drought situation, either abnormally dry as you get further inland, but as you hug the coast, you can actually see it's a moderate to severe drought in most cases. And even in Texas, South Texas is actually having some pockets of extreme drought conditions. In this area, there is quite a bit of agriculture that takes place. There's tomato and cotton farming and other types of farming, some citrus as well that takes place in those parts of the country. Breaking it down on a more regional level, you can see the regional outlook to the far left. For Louisiana in particular, it may not show up so much on the regional map, but when you look specifically at the state level, you can see that there's actually severe drought indications across St. Bernard and Plaquemines Parish. Now, granted, these are estuary areas, mostly marsh grass and whatnot, and some limited agricultural interests as well, southern and Plaquemines Parish in particular. So those areas are showing some indications of drought to worsen in the short term. Elsewhere, you see there's quite a bit of drying across most of South Louisiana. And then if you look into Mississippi, along the immediate coast, say south of I-10 corridor, that's where the drought conditions are the worst. And then as you get further inland, it kind of diminishes a little bit as you get well inland, where they've had several systems to develop rain over central Mississippi. So going into Sunday, we'll get some rain, and probably on Wednesday as well of next week. And so that'll help maybe ease some of these and allay some of these conditions. And then the Drought Monitor folks, of which we're part of a team, we discuss it at the national and regional and state levels to come up with a consensus on what the conditions are. So we'll reevaluate this heading into next week and see if we can trim some of this back based on the rainfall that occurs over this weekend. So once again, in summary, to close this out, we're looking at mild conditions tonight and Friday. Drought conditions in the short term is worse, but hopefully we'll get a little bit of reprieve from it in the upcoming weeks or so. Rain returns Saturday with some cold front moving into the area and then stalling, and then we hopefully will get we'll get some rain out of this. But the unfortunate aspect of this is there's a risk of some severe weather on Sunday once again. We're going to hope and pray that it's not as bad as this last Sunday was, but just suffice it to say, it stays to be prepared. We encourage you to have multiple ways to get warnings, receive warnings this weekend, be it weather radio or your TV or your phone app, online from a web service, website. Do whatever you can to get the information in a prompt, in a direct manner. And also stay tuned for any updates that we issue, and be prepared for this weekend should weather come upon you. Once again, we thank you for joining us. We hope you stay safe with the weather and also with your fight against the coronavirus. And we'll see you hopefully in the near future. Have a good day.